you ever come to US?
I came to LA in 2017. Facebook flew me out for one of their events. So I was there for a week. But I kind of spent most of my time. Where's the big convention center next to Disney World?
Oh, in Florida,
Anaheim.
Orlando?
Anaheim.
Oh, Disneyland. Or
Yeah.
yeah, Disneyland.
Yeah.
Oh, you
So
were there?
I was down in Anaheim. Is it Anaheim? Is it where?
Yes.
Yeah, I was down there.
Yeah. What convention was that?
What was it? VidCon.
What is that? What is that for?
It's mainly, I think, like TikTok and Facebook, they all do this kind of a social media thing.
Like influencers? Like an influencer? Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. I was basically testing something for Facebook and they flew us over because they wanted to show what I'd been doing with the other creators. So, it was quite cool.
I want to know about the charity first. You said that it's for sick kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the charity is for life limited children. So children who are probably not going to live past the age of 16. So, and basically with a lot of their, their life limiting conditions, it's a 24-hour care for their parents. And Chestnut Tree House, they allow the children to go there up to 2 weeks a year for free. So it offloads the burden of the parents, so they can get a little bit of help, and they've got everything for the children there. So they've got games, they've got toys, they've got a special swimming pool, especially heated. So it's an incredible place, but they need to fundraise around £2 million a year just to keep the place open. So, it really hit my heart because I've got 2 kids, and I couldn't begin to imagine the pain that the parents go through for that. It makes you very grateful for the things that you have in your life.
Absolutely. So just for people who are listening and they don't know what the hell we're talking about, you do these insane physical activity things. It looks like the first one was in 2017 and the second was in 2019.
Yeah, the first one was 2016. So I pushed I think it was like 315 pound sled for 24 hours straight. That was the first one. And then the next year I did the backwards run. So I ran backwards for 24 hours.
Right.
And last year's one was box jumping Mount Everest. So it was 2-foot box, 14,550 reps in 22 and a half hours.
You ran backwards for 24 hours straight.
Yeah, so 109 kilometers, no rest.
As a American, what is that in miles?
So in miles, that's 69 miles.
Oh, wow. Almost 70 miles. So, and that's the one that you raised almost, I want to say $27,000.
Yeah, I think that one was around 23,000 pounds. So it's probably about $30,000.
Right. Yeah. And for the charity that we were talking about in the beginning, and in 2019, you jump boxed the height of Mount Everest in 22 hours.
Yeah, it was Guinness World Record, so no one had ever done it before.
Right.
I didn't know if it could be done, and lots of people didn't think it was possible. So,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. In answer to your question, no, I don't think anyone had been in the past stupid enough to attempt it, to be honest. So,
and I was going to say, has anyone ever ran backwards for 24 hours, or was that another world record also?
Two people in the world have, and I missed the record by about, I think it was 8 minutes. So,
darn it. Yeah. Did you know that at the time?
Yeah, it was a close one. And, I was literally on the line and I had to make a decision because I reckon I could have got it, but I don't reckon I could have carried on afterwards. And it was around the 22-hour mark. And the event was a 24-hour backwards run, not a Guinness World Record. It would have been nice to get it, but, I was just like, what's more important, to complete the entire race or to get the record? And for me, it was to complete the entire 24 hours. So,
right. That wasn't your focus to get the world record.
No, I mean, it never is. It's just it's a kind of a bonus, with box jumping Mount Everest, I wanted to do it. Then I realized from doing these events that obviously just to check in with Guinness to see if there is a world record for it. And if not, then why not set one? And having gone through the process, I applied for the box jump. And obviously what happens if there's something that hasn't been set before, then they send a big list of rules because they need to be, correctly measured, recorded. So basically they can put it in their books, and of course someone can try and beat that record, which I did actually have someone attempt this year.
Oh really?
So.
Yeah. And then what happened to them?
They only managed 11 hours.
That's not even close.
Yeah, well, it was quite surprising for me because someone reached out and said they were going to attempt it, and I was fascinated because I was just like, right, was the thing that I did easy? Because the guy that was attempting, it wasn't an ordinary guy, it was an airborne soldier. So if anyone could have done it, it could have been someone like that. And 11 hours in, just his body gave up.
It's not so much. You actually said something in your one of your videos that I really liked. You said it's amazing what your body can do when it's not up to you. And so as you said, it's not so much about the physical fitness of that person that tried to do it. A lot of times it's the cause that they're doing it for it, and the mental toughness of the person as well. Maybe physically they were like suited to do it, but I watching your videos, it really seemed like what pushed you through the times that you could obviously see in your face that you're just like, tired. It was the cause that really pushed you. So maybe that person didn't have that cause.
Yeah, I mean, thing is that one was the hardest one to do, and that was my third one. So I had a lot of experience with being in that position. And it's a very tough position when you're halfway through something like that, because you have a defining moment in all of things like that where you kind of want to give up and you think your body's completely gone, and it's a state which you've got to push through. So it usually lasts about an hour or 2 hours. But if you don't know that it's a state, then you can't push through. And it's hard to explain because the only person I've really resonated with that's been able to explain it easier is a guy in the US called David Goggins. And what he says it is the 40% rule. And what he says is when you're at 40%, when you feel like you can't put anything else in, if you actually realize that you're only at 40%, you can keep going. And that is a great way to kind of look at it, because I think a lot of people are limited by the things that they think. And as soon as you accept that thought, it becomes a reality. And, if you're not willing to accept those things, and, just put one foot in front of the other and carry on going, you'll be amazed how quickly you get a second wind, and go through kind of another phase. I think the Navy SEALs call it evolution, and how the Navy SEALs essentially going through Hell Week. They don't sleep for 5 days. They have the most brutal training.
Right.
But the way that they call it is evolution. So once they finish
Absolutely.
one day, that's one evolution done. And the way that they kind of look at it is that they don't count it as if each evolution is, they don't count as if it's 5 days sleep. They finish one part of the evolution and then they're fresh and they're ready to go again, even though they're not. And it's a state of mind.
It is. It's absolutely a state of mind, because it's like, as you said, physically there's so much more you can do physically, but it's your mind just comes in. It's like, no, you're tired. No, you can't do anymore. I don't know who I heard this from, but I guess there was like a world record for how much someone can run in a specific period of time. And it was set around the world. people knew that that's the record and no one can do it anymore. Nobody actually would do it until somebody broke that record, and then everybody started doing it. The thing that everybody thought was actually impossible, as soon as somebody did it and everyone was like, oh, it is possible. And then everybody, a bunch of people started doing it after that first person. That was something that nobody was doing right before that. Everybody thought it's impossible to do it. But I guess once you see that it is possible, then you're like, oh, somebody did it. Maybe I can do it. But I want to ask you, like, what do you tell yourself when you want to give up? Like, let's say you jump box for 24 hours after the 9th, 10th, 15th, 16th hours of jumping and you're just done. Like, what do you tell yourself? How do you keep going?
One day, none of this will matter. Simple as that. During my training, I had that printed off in front of me, and it's a harsh reality that a lot of people think it's somber, but whatever you do in life, nothing's going to matter, because it's all going to end one day. So why allow a sudden state of pain to affect that? And it's kind of a weird thought process, but it is a reality, because when you're feeling, pain and you can't go on and stuff, you're very much living in the now of, it's not going to get any better than this. As in, the pain that I'm experiencing now is the pain I'm going to experience for the next 10, 12 hours. And it's not true. And it's a perspective as well, is no matter how much pain I'm feeling right now, it would not compare to the pain of a mum and dad knowing that their 8-year-old son is not going to make it past his 12th birthday. And no amount of pain that I go through for a simple 24 hours is going to match that. Because as soon as I finish the event, my pain's over. So it's only temporary. And a lot of that is a perspective. And you can train that. You can train that by having that perspective and pushing yourself out of what you find comfortable. And once you find that you're actually capable of these things, and the reality is every person is. It's not some hereditary thing. It's not some mystical genetic power. It's
right.
It's pushing yourself through and having that kind of belief in yourself that you are able to do that. So we have a lot of limiting beliefs which
absolutely
stop people doing things.
Absolutely. But let's say that the next day you're going to wake up and you're going to do something like that, like jumping the height of Mount Everest on a box for 22 hours. How do you prepare yourself for a day like that physically and mentally? And from like how long before that do you start preparing? And like what kind of routine do you have to prepare for something like that?
When it comes to something like that, I give myself 3 to 4 months to physically prepare and mentally prepare. And it comes down to training. If you ever see a training session for each one, I take them immense, like they are the most serious thing. I will prepare absolutely everything. It will take me, before I jump on a box, it will take me 30 to 40 minutes to get everything ready and in place. And I will run each scenario in my head. Once I finish each session, be it an hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, I'll write down the things I was feeling between each hour, the niggles that I had in certain places, techniques that work, that didn't, things that I might need to panic about, things that need improving. And it works within a kind of a physical journal of progression. There's something in training called the SAID principle, which is specific adaptation to imposed demands. So the more demands which you place on yourself, the more that you can take. And it comes down to adapting to your body. I remember doing the backwards run. I was training up to 5 or 6 hours, and my Achilles swelled for about 2 months during training. Yeah, about 2 months doing training, twice the size it was. And then all of a sudden, about 2 weeks later, all the swelling went down. I no longer had any pain in my Achilles, and it was fine. And on the backwards run, I had 0 injuries.
Your
And
ankles were swollen. I could
ankles,
see it in the video.
yeah, they were swollen because, you know, it's that repetitive movement coming back. But I had no long-term damage from that because, you know, I trained for 6 months for that, and I must have ran backwards during the training, probably about 30 to 40 hours, probably way more actually, probably about 40 to 50. And your body adapts to what it is that you're doing constantly. You know, when you look at runners who, you know, I think something that you were saying about people never done things before. There was a guy who ran a sub 2 hour marathon, and his average pace was 16.5 miles per hour. Now, if you stick a treadmill on 16.5 miles an hour, it's a sprint pace, which most people can only last 2 minutes. But that guy managed to do that for 2 hours straight. Was it as difficult? Yeah. Was it as difficult for him as me trying to run 16? No. Was my backwards run as difficult as, you know, somebody doing it for the first time? No, because I'd spent 6 months training for it. You know, if you do 50 box jumps, you'll be out of breath. When I first started doing 50 box jumps, I was out of breath. But after 3 or 4 months of training, you know, you do 50. And even funny enough, I started doing box jumps now, and it's as if I've built up a kind of immunity to them, because I'd been doing my technique and my training from it has been so, you know, so built up that it no longer affects me as much as it used to. And it's just that kind of muscle memory that you get.
Absolutely. How does your wife handle you doing stuff like that? Like, isn't she worried that you're gonna, like, you know, hurt yourself, injure yourself beyond repair? How does she handle it?
All the time.
Does she try to like push you not to do it?
She's used to it by now because I do a lot of these things.
She also adapts.
she does adapt. Yeah. I mean, she's incredible. But at the same time, I think, you know, Dee, as you know, I need to do these things, because it's not just you know, there is selfish benefits from doing it as well as selfless. You know, it allows me to put my head into something and channel my energy into something and find, you know, that kind of find myself a little bit within that, you know, and I think you learn a lot about yourself through, you know, that pain and suffering, which a lot of people aren't willing to experience.
Yeah, I agree. As David Goggins says, stay hard, which I don't know if you ever listen to him, but he says that all the time. And I can totally see how it applies to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, everybody is different, you know. Like, I remember doing the training, listening to David Goggins' audiobook, and I resonated with certain things, and there's certain things that I don't. You know, for me, these things I like to push myself, but I'll do one every 2 years. It's not something that I'm doing every single weekend. It's when I get the itch and want to do it, I will. But I don't want to sacrifice what I have for living a life of that, because it's knowing what you're willing to sacrifice, and I'm not willing to give up all of my time for the training to be able to constantly compete at that level, because I want weekends off. I have a very busy business, and my
two very cute kids.
Exactly, and I'm not willing to sacrifice that for my own selfish goals of training.
I took the Myers-Briggs test from you, and you're an INTJ. Have you ever heard of this test, or have you ever heard of INTJ? Have you ever read anything about it?
I have, and I say that because I'm always fascinated by personality tests. There's a great author called Benjamin Hardy who has a book called Personality Isn't Permanent. And I do find personality tests interesting. But I think one of the issues with them is that people can take on the information that they've been told and take it as a fact. And I think that we can change as people, because we do. 5 years ago, the personality that I had is very different to the personality that I have now.
Absolutely.
So I'm fascinated by it.
Right.
But I'm sure you're gonna let me know.
Oh, I'm going to let you know. I 100% agree that the person that you were 5 years ago, 1 year ago, is very different than the person you are now. So am I, very different. But the thing is, these tests are not about the daily improvements and changes you make in your routine, your habits, and your mindset. They're about the very core essence of people, because people do have a core essence, things that stay relatively same throughout their whole life. If you were to look at your memories as a child, there are things that are still very same as the man that you are today, and will stay the same when you become 80, 90, hopefully 100, right? These tests are about those core essence of people, and those stay relatively very, very much the same. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, it depends if people are, it depends if people are willing to accept the reality of certain things and the want and need to change it. People are very stuck in their ways and not willing to address things that might have come from a child. And I think it depends on how self-aware you are with these things, because a lot of us have very closed minds and accept things as they are, and don't question things. And I've always had that kind of, well, why is it like that? Why does it have to be like that? Why is it ingrained like that? Why can't we change it?
Right.
And that's it, so if I, for example, if I have someone say that I'm a certain way, it's like, well, I can change that, and that's not going to be easy, because it's not just snapping your fingers. But in order to make a change, you need to understand where those weaknesses and flaws are. And this
Right.
is one of the biggest downsides of people, because they're not willing to accept that they're flawed.
Right. One of the problems that a lot of people have with personality tests like Myers-Briggs is that they say it puts you into boxes. It puts you in a box. It tells you what your weaknesses are, and then it dictates to you the ways you should be, or the ways that you are, and therefore it just confines you in that little box of your personality type. And my answer to that is that you already are in that box. You're just not aware of it. You have those weaknesses. You are in that personality box of having specific traits that are very individual to you. When you take the test and you see your results, you become aware of the box. You see the box from outside and you're like, oh, these are my weaknesses. You read it and you're like, oh, that resonates, that resonates. So it's not that it puts you in that box. It's just that you weren't that aware of the box. But hey, now you know. And then you live your life, and when you read the things of the test and the characteristics it tells you have, and the problems you have and the weaknesses you have, first you might be a little skeptic. So was I when I took my first Myers-Briggs test many years ago. And then I lived my day-to-day life, and I was like, oh, this is exactly what the test was talking about. Like, a situation would come up and I was like, oh, this, like, it told me exactly this thing. And then I read more about it and I was like, this shit's pretty accurate. And then I started taking it from everyone around me, all my friends, all my family, every guy I would go on a date on. As soon as we would go on a third date, I would have them take it just to see if we're compatible. And so I became a huge believer in it. But you should definitely not let it, if you think that it's like dictating to you the ways you should be and you should not be.
I think one of the biggest issues is that the answer to it, the results, has come from your own personal input. So that's what's changeable. For example, if, let's just say, for a great example, that we're in a pandemic period, the state in which you're in, like, are you the first person to go into a room? Well, you can look back and go, well, I haven't really been in many rooms the last 6 months, so no. But last year you could have been in a lot of social situations which allowed you to, which encouraged you to be the center of attention, in which case you go from a very unlikely to a very likely. And that's what I find fascinating, the fact that you can, based on circumstances, you can choose different outcomes based on what it is that you've put, which then will create different outcomes to your personality, which will be true because, of course, that will change. But that doesn't mean that the year after it's going to be different because of the way that you respond to the questions. And that's why I think, my wife loves tarot reading. And they put all these cards out and they tell her all these things. And my wife tells me all these things. And funny enough, they all seem to happen. I'm like, okay.
Really?
Okay.
You're like, God damn it. I wanted to make fun of it, but now it's starting to get scary.
Unfortunately, I do, because, I very much don't believe in them.
You do?
No.
You don't?
Not one bit.
But then what happens when I don't know anything about it. I don't either support it nor deny it, because I don't know much about it. But when you say that they come true and they happen, then how does that not change your opinion about it?
There's a book recommendation. I don't know if you've heard of Darren Brown.
Who?
Darren Brown. He's very popular in the UK. And he had a book called Happy. And what the book is about is actually following things from Baptist churches, and how a lot of they followed these Baptist priests around who were making about 100 to 200 million a year. And people were giving them money in the hope that they would be healed. And they did believe that they could perform miracles, and if they donated enough money that they would cure their problems. And what would happen is some problems wouldn't be cured. And the response to that was, well, how much did you donate? And it's fascinating because it was never the Baptist's fault. It was always the other person's. And I think very much with anything that says something, that it could be true, but also could be false. And if it's false, it's your fault. If it's true, then it's the right thing. And I think a lot of us want that certainty. We want to know that everything's going to be okay. And that gives us a drop in overwhelm and anxiety and makes us feel better. I'm very fascinated with Stoicism, and I read a lot of Stoicism. And Stoicism has a very different approach. It's not about hoping for the best, it's hoping for the worst and the best, and enjoying all of it. Because life is full of ups and downs. If you hope that your life is going to be perfect, you're sadly mistaken. If you are worried about things going wrong, understand that they will go wrong. You will have a lot of pain in your life, but you'll also have a lot of pleasure too. And if you approach both of them with enjoyment and love, and understand that's the natural part of life, then you'll feel a lot more fulfilled and content when both the bad things and good happen, such as the pandemic.
Absolutely.
A lot of people can think that this is the worst thing that ever happened. And there's a great, I love this kind of Zen story, and it's about a farmer, and it's called I Don't Know, We'll See. And what happens basically is that a farmer has two horses, and one of the horses gets out, and the villagers say, oh, that's unfortunate. And the farmer says, I don't know, we'll see. The horse comes back, and it brings with it another 4 horses, and the villagers go, well, that was lucky. And the farmer says, I don't know, we'll see. Next day, his son was riding the horse, falls off the horse, breaks his leg, and the villagers say that was unlucky. And he says, I don't know, we'll see. It was during the wartime, and they were rounding up fit, healthy young men to go and fight the war. But because the son had his leg broken from falling off the horse, it was just like, oh, that was lucky. And the farmer said, I don't know, we'll see. And I love that, because the outcome is never the outcome. So anything bad happens to your life, you don't know whether that's the best thing that's ever going to happen to you. You know, people can look at this pandemic period and go, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. But what this gives you now is a feeling of appreciation of when life is good and you do have the freedom to do what it is that you want, that you're going to do it with a lot more gratitude and a lot more happiness. So you kind of then have to ask yourself, well, am I feeling bad about a pandemic, or am I feeling that that was the best thing that ever happened to me? And,
Right.
you know, something I say to a lot of people is you don't learn anything from a perfect day. So it's usually times of darkness that we actually realize that, you know, we don't need much to be happy.
Right.
And, you know, for me, that's all I need to know. I don't need, you know, I don't need to know my personality for that, if that makes sense.
Or your tarot reading.
All my wife's tarot reading, yeah.
There's this very slight difference, though. One of them is scientific. The other one is not. One of them is psychology. The other one, I don't know what it's based on, but I'm sure it's not science. To me, it's like I went to a lady who read my palm or something when I was a kid, and she told me a bunch of things. I recorded it. I super randomly found the file in my old laptop the other day when I was going through my like baby pictures, and I started listening to it. And a lot of it did come true. I was listening to it, and she told me that I'm going to leave the country. I'm going to do like a few of the big ones she said did come true. And to me, it was like, I don't know really what to think of this, because in the moment, even when I was like sitting there and she was telling me these things, it was just kind of like a party favor where they like invited a lady to just like, you know, it doesn't make sense to me. And I have a difficult time with accepting things that don't logically make sense to me. If someone was to sit me down and explain to me with scientific, empirical things that I can observe with my eyes and I can make sense in my mind, how palm reading or tarot reading, not that I'm saying everything needs to be scientifically proven to be believed. God is certainly not scientifically proven. And, you know, a lot of us believe in that. But with things like this, it's so much more easy for me with like a personality type situation when it is it's psychology. It's functionality of your brain. And to me, when I read it, I'm like, this actually makes a lot of sense. I'm going to believe it. But with something that's like, I don't know where it comes from. Like, yes, I listened back to that audio file and the lady was very accurate with a lot of stuff that she said. But will I go to a palm reader or a tarot reader again? Probably not. Just because I don't know where that comes from. For all I know, these people could have figured out a bunch of things that people really want to hear, and they say it to everyone. And out of those people, there are the ones that are hardworking and they go after their goals and they do those things and they will achieve those things. And then they look back and they're like, oh, that lady was right. You know, because I mean, it's never happened to me. I wonder if they ever look at someone's like palm and they're like, you're going to die tomorrow, or like your mother is going to get cancer tomorrow. It just seems like they just say all the nice, happy stuff that people want to hear. And sometimes you look back and you're like, oh, a bunch of those things did happen. So that's not really my area of expertise.
Yeah, I think there was actually a study done, and I can't remember what the study is, but people need certainty in their life. We all need the right balance of certainty and uncertainty. You know, too much certainty in our lives and we get bored. Too much uncertainty and we get overwhelmed. And it's all about finding that balance. And I think a lot of people are hoping. As I said, there's still a lot of people there that want somebody to turn around to them and say everything will be fine, and that makes us feel less overwhelmed. And yeah.
It just makes you feel like you get this sense of control, and anything that gives us a sense of control and gives us a little bit of peace of mind, we just roll with it. It's better than just like not knowing.
I think it's better to get certainty that your life is going to be uncertain.
Let that sink in.
And I think that's so much better, because now you can feel good knowing that there's going to be some bad things that happen to you. There's going to be some good things that happen to you.
Right.
But I've got a tattoo on my arm, and it's got a Latin quote that says "Memento mori," and what that means is remember that you have to die, because it doesn't matter if you go tomorrow or in 50 years' time, you're still going to go. And it's not about that time in which you go; it's about what you do during that time. And for me, that gives me a great feeling of being in the now. That's looking at my children with a massive smile on my face, knowing that I'm never going to get this moment back. It's waking up in the morning and going for a walk and looking out at the sea and absorbing things and taking it in and actually having this thought of one day, this will be the last time I walk and feel this. So let's imagine that that is going to happen now. How amazing does this feel right now? And unfortunately, when you look at some people, they walk around as if they're going to live forever because they've got their head down in their phone, worried about very small problems that don't actually matter. And it is as if they want to hurry their life to their deathbed because they are so busy sorting their shit out, when in actual fact, they need to wake up and smell the flowers. And reminding yourself each day that it's going to end makes every day amazing.
Last night, as I was in bed, scrolling on my phone, I saw your video that you uploaded. Literally, the video starts with saying, if you are in bed right now doing this, immediately lock my phone, put it away. I was like, I'll see you tomorrow, Jamie. I'll see you tomorrow morning.
and for me, that comes from experience. That comes from being the person who is scrolling on their phone of a night time. And, once again, it's being aware of things and being aware of your feelings. When I'm feeling anxiety, when I feel overwhelmed, it's like, why am I experiencing this right now? What is it that I'm not doing? I shared a quote. I can't remember what it was, but for me, it made a lot of sense. And what it was is, we live in a time when our problems aren't obvious and the solutions aren't that complex. And actually, a lot of overwhelm, anxiety, and frustration comes from simple things: not getting enough sleep, not exercising, not eating the right food, spending too much time on social media that isn't actually social, not actually going out and saying hello to people and vibing off real people and experiencing connection with humans. And, these are all simple things that we all know about, but common sense isn't common practice. And a lot of the time when I am feeling these things, it is because I'm either tired. I think what's the acronym HALT? All your feelings are experienced by one of four things. And it's called HALT. So hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And you need to ask yourself, when you're not in a good state, am I hungry?
All your negative emotions come from, okay.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think when people feel good, they don't write down. They're not hungry. Well, when people feel good, they don't ask themselves, why do I feel good right now? Because success leaves clues. So actually, if I'm feeling really happy and fulfilled, and I ask myself, why do I feel really happy and fulfilled? It's because of certain circumstances, which if I'm aware of, I can do more of those things. So if I'm feeling great because I've put my phone down for the day, and I ask myself, why do I feel good today? It's like, because I haven't got my mobile phone with me. So what that says to me is that I might want to experiment and try this again, because if I feel like this every time and it's because I haven't got my phone, then I've found something out that if I don't have my phone on me, I feel happy.
Absolutely.
And that led to me not having a phone on a Thursday. And I call it Phone Swap Thursday, and it's fantastic because I get excited about it. I get excited about doing everything for my business, doing all my work, and letting everybody know that you cannot get in contact with me.
No phone on Thursdays? Do you have a time limit on your Instagram and stuff, where it gives you an alert, like you already spend this much time?
No, I mean, I've got usually a simple practice where my phone is in another room at 8 p.m. and I don't see it again till the morning. So, and I have an alarm by my bed. And Thursdays, I do have an Apple Watch. So if there's any emergencies that you can text or get in contact with me. But Thursdays is a no phone day.
Do you get notifications on your Apple Watch? Because that's really distracting too. It's like you try to put your phone away, but then you keep getting these ramblings of notifications on your wrist, and you can't even put it away. It's like it's right there.
Yeah, there's only a few people who've got my actual my phone. So the only thing that comes up is iMessage. So the only person that can text me is my my manager or my wife. So if they are going to text me, then it will be for a serious reason.
I just got an Apple Watch for my boyfriend for his birthday last week. He just started working out and being active. So I was trying to push him and support him and motivate him. So I got him an Apple Watch and he freaking loves it. But whenever we were setting it up, he was like, I'm not going to put my notifications on because of that very same reason. It's even if you try to put your phone away, because they have cellular data. So you can just put your phone away and go on a hike or whatever. But he was like, if I'm trying to put my phone away and I keep getting notifications on this fucking thing, it defeats the purpose. Something interesting I want to tell you. So I'm not exactly sure the number of podcasts I've had, the number of episodes I've had by far, but I want to say something like, it's probably Kyle, is it our 10th, 11th? Something like that. It's my 10th or 11th. And just to kind of tie it back with your personality type as an INTJ. So the first letter is for introvert, second letter N is for intuitive, third letter T is for thinking, and J is for judging. Not to be mistaken with being judgmental, has nothing to do with that. But so you're a thinker, which means you make most of your decisions based on facts and logic and reasoning. Not that thinkers don't make emotional decisions. Humans as a species, we make most of our decisions based on emotions. But thinkers more so put more weight on analyzing a situation, looking at it from different perspectives, making the most logical and reasonable decision. Whereas feelers might just go with a feeling of a moment, an emotion that really takes over them and it's strong, so they make more emotional decisions. So I want you to guess, out of the 10, let's say 10 people that I've had on my podcast, how many thinkers do you think I've had by far?
8.
8 thinkers? So 2 feelers? You are massively wrong, my friend Jamie. You are the first thinker.
Oh, really?
Of all the guests I've had, which I had read it that most population of the world are feelers. There are more feelers in the world than thinkers. But since I started doing the podcast and I take the test from all my guests, and they started coming in and feeler. And then I was like, God, I can't wait to get a thinker. I was like a thinking person. And then I wondered how long it's going to take. And then you took the test and you're an INTJ. I was like, finally.
Do you know why I think that might be?
Why?
Because there's certain questions in there that if you are worried what other people think, you would move a couple of rungs up on a certain ones of them.
Wait, say that again?
There is a couple of questions on there which I think some people will not 100% accurately put what they really feel they are for fear that it comes out as somebody that they don't want other people to think that they are.
Absolutely, I agree, which is why it's really important. I agree and I disagree, so let me tell you why. I agree, and that's why I tell everyone who takes the test to be 100% honest with themselves. There is no right or wrong answer. There is no right or wrong personality type. There is no right person, wrong person when it comes to people's characteristics, right? We're different, but no one is better than the other person because they make decisions based on logic or because they make decisions based on that doesn't make anyone better than the other. It's just everyone's different. So I always invite people to be really honest when they take the test because there's no right or wrong answer. But something that I really like about this test is that if you answer wrong one of the questions or two of the questions, that's not going to affect your result. And I've tried that personally. I take the test every 3 months or so, and I've done it for the past few years, and I always get the right answer, even though I try to tweak my answers a little bit here and there just to see how much it affects. And the way the test is formatted is that in order to get to one of the letters in your result, it asks you multiple questions to get to that same result. So if it were to ask one question and you were to say like mistake it or, not want to be completely honest, you wouldn't get the wrong answer because it asks the same question in multiple ways with different language. I'm sure you've noticed that it kind of like asks the same question in a lot of different ways where you're like, wait, I feel like I've answered this in the previous questions, but it does that so that if you made a mistake, then, maybe in a different language, in a different example, you won't.
Potentially.
And so you're skeptic of personality test. So let me tell you a couple things and you tell me if they resonate or not. So INTJs are actually pretty rare. They make up to 2% of the population. And their archetype is called the masterminds, which is a cool thing to call it. We have 4 leads, and their first lead is intuition, which means imagine a car. The dad is the driver, the mom is the passenger seat, and there are 2 kids in the back. One of them is 13, the other one is 3. So the mom and the dad are the strengths of your brain, right? Because if the dad can't drive, the mom can jump over and drive. But if it ever comes down to the kids in the back to have to drive, you're probably in trouble, especially if it comes to the 3-year-old, right? So the 3-year-old is your weakness. The dad is your biggest strength. The mom is your second strength. And the 13-year-old is the part of your brain that as you grow older, you make it better. You work on it. You grow as a person. And that's the one that it's like a lifelong, work of your personality. So your lead is intuition. Your second lead is thinking, and then feeling, and then sensing. What that means is that your weakness is biggest weak spot would be staying tuned into the present moment and noticing concrete details. They prefer to focus on the abstract world of unconscious visions and possibilities over the practical, tangible world they can see, smell, touch, and taste. I'm actually the same way too. INTJs tend to tinker with ideas, perspectives, and theoretical possibilities in their minds, and they are pulled towards a vision that they feel their life should be. They tend to look down a little on living in the moment and prefer to focus on the future. They also have a dark sense of humor and sarcastic, which I am the same way, and I actually really like that. So do you feel the same? Like, do you ever feel like when you're at a party or you're out or whatever, do you ever, because I'm the same way. I feel like sometimes I struggle with being in the moment, paying attention to the details of the surroundings. I tend to be so much more in my head thinking of theoretical ideas, the ways that things could be in order for them to be better rather than the way they are. And INTJs are great at this. You show them a plan and they find errors in the system really well. That's one of their biggest talents. They can find errors in systems really well. They like to work alone as well. They do well with people, but they would rather spend a lot of time by themselves, reading, writing, working on their craft. And as I said, good at spotting errors in systems. Good at building visions, and they're very long-range strategizers. And as far as the weakness that I said, do you think that resonates at all?
I think some things, yes. But as with anything, it's very broad because it's all going to be circumstantial. For
Absolutely.
example, a lot of people will say, are they introvert or extrovert? And I'm like, well, it depends on the situation.
Absolutely.
You're going to say, right, part of my job is being a public speaker in front of thousands of people. Am I an introvert with that? No, very extroverted in the way that I talk. If I'm sitting at home with family, am I quite introverted? Then yeah, because I'm comfortable with the people around me and I feel that I have no need to perform. So I would act more introverted with regards to that. So I think it depends on the situation in which you're in. One thing
Absolutely.
that I think in my younger self, I'd be very much egotistical, lead from the front, very loud mouthed, where as I have got older in situations, I would lead from the back and allow other people to make the mistake in what they're doing and just pick up the pieces as and when needs be, and actually get some pleasure out of not having to be at the front and have to figure it all out, and
Absolutely.
actually support everybody at the back who's struggling. And obviously I think it all depends on who I'm with, the situation, and the person that needs to turn up for that.
100% I agree. There's a huge misconception that people think people who are introverted, that means that they're just always balled up in a curl in the corner of their room by themselves, which is 100% not accurate, especially in the case of an INTJ. INTJs, even though they are introverted and they do work a lot better when they're alone, and they like to spend a lot of time by themselves, but they're absolute superstars when they're in a crowd. They work the crowd, they know how to talk to people, they know how to engage. But that being an introvert doesn't mean that, oh, you just don't like talking to people. What it really means is that after talking to people for a certain amount of time and being at a party and engaging in a crowd, you do feel like you need to go home and spend time by yourself to recharge. How do you recharge as a person? Do you recharge when you're tired? Do you recharge by going out and being with people, or do you recharge by staying in and getting some alone time?
Yeah, books and quiet corners, and notepads and pens.
Okay, see, there's the introvert. There's the INTJ in you. And another part that you said, you used to be a certain way when you were younger, but now you let other people also express themselves. That could also play into your third lead that I was mentioning, your feeling, because INTJs are not very good at feeling situations, emotional situations. They don't necessarily like people that are very overly emotional. They don't like situations that are very overly emotional. It's a little hard for them to make sense and make logic of emotions of themselves and other people. But because that's your third lead, which is the 13-year-old in the back, and that is something that you develop as you get older, that's why you say something like, oh, when I was younger, I was this way. But now, as a grown man, you've had time to develop that aspect of yourself. And now you connect better to emotions of others rather than before, where you would just only accept situations that would be logical.
Yeah, I think as I get older, I develop more empathy for things. I think when I was younger, especially I was in the British Army for 7 years, so going from there to a civilian, it's very hard to understand people's struggles. When I hear, I remember speaking to somebody and saying that they've been in a prison for 9 months, when in actual fact they've just been stuck in their house because of the pandemic. And I find it very hard to have empathy for someone like that after spending 18 months of my life in Baghdad, Iraq, where you essentially were, having bombs drop left, right, and center of you. And I'm actually sitting in my home on lockdown with
Wi-Fi.
Netflix, Wi-Fi, my books, and people still complain that it's like a prison. It's just, it boggles my mind, but it comes down to perspective, you know. And at first, I think many years ago, I couldn't empathize with it. But then I also then realized how lucky I was to have been in those situations from an early age. So it was more that I have that luck now of having that experience from a young age. And then that allowed me then to appreciate the fact that I, in certain circumstances, don't struggle with that. And actually, it's now my kind of duty to be able to help that person through that, by empathizing and understanding that in comparison, that is the worst thing that's happened to them in their life so far. And
Exactly.
they have many, many years to develop and grow that. So approach it with the same thought process of your current experiences. And I think that's important. Something that many years ago that I couldn't do, because I couldn't understand why someone got so stressed over something so small. And it takes time, because it's that perspective and that
Exactly.
real understanding of your own, you know, experiences. And, you know, this was from the age of 22, 23, 24. And I was very fortunate to be in that position of you know, perspective from that experience.
You have this video on TikTok that I liked a lot. I think that's actually how I came upon your profile. You said there are 3 things that you need in life to be happy. And you were recording this video as you were getting smacked in the ocean by water, and you were just having so much fun with it. Can you name those 3 things that you said you need in life to be happy?
I think.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I think one of them is the ability to do things that you don't want to do and do them anyway. Discipline is doing the things that motivation is doing things when you feel like doing it, and discipline is doing things regardless of how you feel. We might not want to do certain things, such as what I do, you know, year round. I go in the sea every morning, whether it's winter, summer, whatever. That is my discipline. I never want to do it, but I do it anyway. Understanding that it's getting the balance of certainty and uncertainty. Too much certainty and you become bored, and too much uncertainty, you become overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. So it's understanding that we have both needs. And if you are feeling bored, it's mainly because you're trying to control too many things, and you need to go and have some fun. And if you feel a little bit overwhelmed, you know, if you feel a little bit overwhelmed, a great example of this is, you know, we all like going on holiday. We all like having everything done for us, and we can sit down and do nothing. But after about 7-10 days, you kind of want to get back to a routine.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's just knowing that our whole lives are a balance of that.
Even fun becomes boring.
Exactly. You know, and we want some routine. We want at the end of the day, we want to have some fun, but we always want to see progress. We always want to know that we're working towards something. And without that, there's one of my favorite books is by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, and it's called Psycho-Cybernetics. And he explains human beings are like bikes. When bikes are stationary, they're very wobbly and hard to control, but when they have momentum and movement, they're easier to steer. And that's our lives. You know, we are unaware of what it is that we need to do, and we have no direction. We become wobbly and we become unstable. But when we know which way that we're going and the path that we're going down, it's so much easier to steer. And a lot of people are those wobbly bikes. They feel stuck. They don't know which direction to go, and that's a lot of their problems. Because right. You know, I think one of the biggest problems these days is you can do anything with your life. You know, you have an abundance of choice, and because of that, you don't know what to choose. And sometimes it's just a case of pick one and do it.
Oh my God, the options, the paralyzing amount of options we have with everything. Mm-hmm. The most difficulty I have when I go to a restaurant to order is when I go to Cheesecake Factory. I don't know if you've ever been. but it's this restaurant that's menu is like 30 pages. They have steak, they have fish, they have salads, they have tacos, they have pasta, they have pizza. And every time I go there, I'm just paralyzed by the amount of options I have. I'm like, I don't know. And then I go to In-N-Out and there are 2 options. You can get a burger and you can get a cheeseburger. And I always know what I want.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is so important to understand that, you got to pick one, but also when you're in a position when you've got too much choice, it's actually easier to make a decision on things that you don't want. So let's just say, for example, you can choose between 10 restaurants. That's a lot of choice, but it's so much easier to go, what don't I want?
Just narrow it down.
And it comes down to understanding that, a lot of people say, right, I can do anything with my life. Well, what don't you want? Oh, I don't want to, I want to live in the same place. Cool. So you can't do that, that, and that. Okay. And it's really going, understanding really why the reason behind that you want to do that. And for a lot of people, it's not for themselves, it's for approval of others. So I want to do that because I want to be respected. And it's just like, well, that's not really going to help you sleep better at night. You're not going to feel fulfilled with that. So
100%.
Let's focus on something else. And you probably, obviously being where you are in LA, that you probably see a lot of people like that they have this outcome-based goal of imagining a life if they suddenly just get that winning lottery ticket and become that thing. And
well,
it's
here,
just like, well,
right here, everyone just wants to become famous.
And I couldn't think of anything worse than, when I think about, the reasons behind why I do stuff. And, I say, like, I want to be well known in my industry and what it is that I do, but I still want to be able to go out in my house and people not know who I am. And I need to get the balance of that. And if it starts getting out of whack, then I need to change that. And that's it's a very hard line to toe. Because obviously with putting yourself out there, you are open up to, notoriety and fame and criticism and everything else like that. It's part of the territory of what it is that you're looking to do. But at the same time, my outcome, something that I find very rewarding is putting good things out into the world. And
right.
And it's that kind of thing. You want to be known for the right things, and I think that drives an individual. But to just be famous for famous sake, it's
not a good enough goal to have. It's not even a real goal to have. It could be a desire, it's not really.
I think someone said it's better to be rich and unknown than famous and poor.
And there are so many of those in LA. I did a book review on this Robert Greene book. I don't know if you've heard of it or if you've read it. It's called Mastery. Oh, yes. There we go. I loved that book. I love Robert Greene. I've read 4 of his books. And a part of that book that I really liked that made me want to do a book review on it and recommend to so many people is that it has a really good way of teaching people right off the bat how to fabricate a path in life that suits you. And then in the middle of the book, it kind of like shows you how to rip your reasonings of why you want something from all the wrong agenda, like the things that you think are going to make your parents happy or your social group happy, and how to find your purpose in your goal in life based on how it really suits you. And another thing that I heard, not in the book, but somewhere else, is that you have to ask yourself 7 times why you want something. With any desire, with any goal, if you just like write it down, like, I want to be famous. Well, why? Because I want to make a lot of money, because I want to be well known, because I want to hang out with Justin Bieber or whatever your reason might be. Okay, why? And then you ask yourself 7 times why, and you have to think about your reasons. You then, after your 7th time asking, your reason comes down to the core reason of why is it that you want that thing. But it takes that ripping apart all those unnecessary things that are around what we think is a goal, but you rip it apart and you're like, oh, I just want to make my parents proud because, you know, they've been great throughout my whole life. I don't want them to have difficulties anymore because they've had enough difficulties raising me or whatever that reason may be. But it's like that like shallow goal that you say in the beginning, like I want to be famous. It usually comes down to like a really core, valuable reason, but you have to like read that book and you have to sit down and ask yourself those reasons or those questions rather. Jamie, before we wrap it up, I just want to say one last thing that I think is going to make you happy. I just want to tell you the famous INTJs. So, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Stephen Hawking. Boom. Doesn't get better than that, huh?
I'll take that.
Right? That's pretty sick. All right. We're out of time here, Jamie. Thank you so much. I'm really glad we did this. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Move with the rhythm. Shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. You've been working, but you're flirting with the weekend. You can freak out.